What separates brands like Cortez from everybody else? Or why can Supreme sell out faster than every other brand? And the truth is that there's other brands with the same quality designs, the same quality materials, and even better designs and better materials and better customer service and better prices and better discounts and better XYZ. And yet they aren't at the same level of Cortez, Supreme, Nike. What is the X factor that separates those guys from the rest? There really is something else at play here, and I believe the answer is community. Hi, I'm Elijah Delport, and once upon a time I was content creating for Culture Kings, Champion, and many other brands that I'm sure you might know. And today, I'm helping clothing brands turn their audience into a community, the very X factor that separates the big guys from everybody else. This video is part 1 of 5 where I'm breaking down the exact structure I've used to help brands like Harry. Within 2 weeks of applying this community framework, we dramatically increased his engagement on Instagram and started seeing comments like this. And then one of his videos got 1.6 million views. Not too bad, especially for an account with less than 5,000 followers. And then not too long after that, Harry saw his quickest ever sellout clothing drop, 200 units in under 90 minutes. And that is the real results of what we're talking about, the sales, the sellouts at the end. And it's all because of community. Now, I'm sure those numbers are pretty convincing, but why else would you want to build a community around your clothing brand? Well, it's very simple. Customers in community become fans. F-A-N. F is for faithful. It means that your customers turn down other options, your competitor clothing brands, even if they are logically better. We've learned from biology that our limbic brain is in charge of decision making, which is also head of emotions, which means that a lot of our decisions, most of the time, are emotional before they are logic. I like this quote, that we buy with emotions and justify with logic. Well, that's exactly what happens when you build a community. You are appealing to the emotional side, the faithfulness of your customers, that they would turn down other logically better options. A is for advocate, and a customer in community becomes a fan or an advocate. And an advocate is somebody that stands on the street corners and shouts your name to the world. Now, not literally, but they might become a walking, talking billboard where they're wearing your brand proudly on their chest. They're telling their friends, they're sharing it with their family. It is free word of mouth marketing. And if you've learned anything, I'm sure you would have heard that word of mouth marketing is one of the, if not the most powerful type of marketing, because we buy from those we know, like, and trust. So no better person than to reach new audiences than people who we are friends with. In other words, your customers going out to their friends and reaching them because they are advocates for your brand. Finally, N is for nurtured. Customers in community become fans that are nurtured. That they come back and buy and buy and buy again and again and again. The people that show up from drop to drop, they are repeat buyers. And this, if there's no other business case, is certainly one. Because repeat buyers mean that you're not only getting more customers, but increasing the value of the customers that you do have. Think about it like this. If every single one of your customers became a fan today and bought 2 times instead of 1, overnight you would double your revenue. Now, it's true, that's unrealistic. However, get my point. Understand what I'm putting down is that if you are able to successfully build a community, at the end of the day, what you get are more customers that stay longer and buy more times. What reason do you have not to build a community? So now I've got you hooked on this idea of community. What are we going to be covering in this first part? Well, very simply, 3 things. First of all, how communities work. We need to understand how they work if we're going to build them. And then we're going to be planning out your community for your clothing brand. And then finally, an actionable step that you can implement today to start getting moving on creating and cultivating your community. So if you get to the end of today's video, I promise that you'll walk away with the foundations you need to start growing your community. Not just build an audience, but actually have engaged customers that really care, that are super fans for what you're doing. And if that's not enough, I have a personalized free gift for you that's going to help you take your brand to the next level, but it's only for those who get to the end of the video. More on that in a few minutes. So let's get into it. How does community work? What we're really asking with this question is, what is the glue to the community? Because that, I think, is the very difference between an audience and a community, is the fact that we're more unified than other cases. And so to understand how community works, we're going to be looking to some of the greatest examples of the greatest communities that we have in history and in society. First of all, the Christian community. Now, I don't really care if you believe in it or not. That's not my point. But simply recognize the fact that Christians have done a pretty good job at being unified and being a community, because there's really more of them than any other unified people group in the world, other than maybe some specific cultures. Another example is family community or a family culture. We're all unified by our family cultures, and it's usually in association with a family name. You know, I'm sure you might have heard people say, oh, don't hang out with the Browns. It's because there's a certain family culture that is associated with that name, with that person, that maybe you don't want to be a part of. And finally, to bring it back to fashion, let's think about a brand like Patagonia, who has a very strong community. And they're all unified by this idea of sustainability and care for our planet. How can we be better at being stewards of the planet that we're a part of? What is the common trait? We can recognize that all of these communities have done a pretty good job at growing, at being unified, at being strong. And so if we're going to learn something from them, we have to understand what is the common trait between all of these. Well, it's very simple. There is a central idea that is common between every single person inside of these communities, and that is the unifying factor of the people. And that's it. A central idea, or as I like to call it, a big idea. A big idea, to give it a definition, is the specific ideology, culture, or lifestyle. It's asking yourself, what is the specific ideology, culture, or lifestyle behind my clothing brand? The thing that goes beyond the clothing, but is going to unify the people that become a part of my community, and eventually will go on to wear my clothing and represent it to the world. Here's a harsh truth that's difficult to come to terms with. It's that you cannot build a community around a product. You can, however, around a big idea. Every example, even in the world of fashion, whether it be Supreme, Nike, Cortez, Patagonia, they all represent a greater idea, and that is why they have a strong community. And it's not because they have a good product or because they have good quality materials or good designs or any of those kind of things. Although they are important, and that is a foundational expectation for any brands that embark on cultivating a community, the true glue to their community is the foundational or big idea behind it all. It is the brand itself. Nothing to do with the product. It is represented by the product, but it is the brand. I like this quote by Simon Sinek. He says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And to bring it to the fashion industry, they don't buy your t-shirt, they buy the greater conceptual meaning behind it. As I mentioned before, it's proven in biology that the limbic brain that is in charge of decision making is also in charge of emotions, which means before anything else, our decisions are made emotionally. Buying a t-shirt is a logical decision. It's either to say, I need a new one, I need to clothe myself, or maybe I like the material or design of this product. That's all information. It is logical. However, to say I resonate with the idea that this t-shirt or the brand behind it represents, that's an emotional decision. And to tap into that is to tap into the very reason why we buy. So let's link this back to the fan framework. Remember, customers in community become fans. F-A-N, faithful, advocates, nurtured. First, faithful. Your big idea answers, what are they being faithful to? Next, advocates. Your big idea also answers, what are they advocating for? And finally, nurtured. It's answering the question, what's the greater idea that they are buying into again and again and again? Why are they becoming repeat buyers, and what are they becoming repeat buyers for? Now we have an understanding of how community works. Let's move on to step one in actually making your community a reality. We need to plan it out. The biggest issue I see among amateur clothing brands is they start with their product. And it makes a lot of sense. If you're selling clothing, that you need a clothing product. And bringing over the concept of a big idea, Planning your community is much about clarifying what that big idea is behind your brand. It really has nothing to do with the clothing. However, the problem is with this that they are signing up to simply get some sales, not some customers, and certainly not to cultivate a community. So if community is for you, then you have to define your big idea. Here are 5 questions that are going to help you uncover and clarify your big idea. Question 1, what does your brand name mean? Question 2, who is the one person that best embodies your brand? 3, what about them is aligned with your brand? 4, if that person and others were gathered in one place, what would they be doing? And 5, what's the greater mission beyond clothing? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you an example and fill out these questions myself and answer them to show you what it looks like to answer these questions. And as a little side quest, I want you to guess what brand I have in mind when I'm answering these questions, because one of the traits of a good brand is that you should know who they are without even having to say their name or show you their product. All right, are you ready? Let's go. First, what does your brand name mean? Now, of course, I'm not going to give you the name because that would give away the brand I have in mind when I'm filling this out. So I'll just tell you what it means. It means the Greek goddess of victory, and it's all about sporting challenges and overcoming and seeing success on the other side, probably being an athlete of quite a high caliber. Second, who is the one person that best embodies your brand? When it comes to this question, I'm thinking about naming a very specific friend, family member, or celebrity. And the key here is that you have to name only one person. In the case of the brand that I have in mind, the person is Michael Jordan, the basketballer. Question 3, what about them is aligned with the brand? I want you to name specific personality traits, attributes, beliefs, values, interests, anything that is integral to their being or that they're known for. In the case of Michael Jordan, I've written out a few ideas here. I'm thinking disciplined, there's a love of sport, in particular basketball, and of course a never give up attitude. There's persistence behind what he does. And with that comes all these ideas of getting up early, working on the hard days, and doing it anyway. The 4th question is, if that person and others like them were gathered in one place, what would they be doing? I think in the case of Michael Jordan, it's pretty obvious. They'd probably be playing basketball or working out or something along those lines. Just something that unifies other people of the same or similar interests, beliefs, or values. Basketballers hang out with other basketballers, and that's the case for whatever your brand niche or big idea is. The people that embody your brand probably also hang out and are close with other people that have similar or shared interests to them. Finally, what is the greater mission beyond your clothing? In the case of the brand that I'm thinking of, it's to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Can you guess who I was writing for? Yes, of course, it's Nike. And the reason I wanted to show you this activity is because one of the traits of a strong brand identity is the fact that you don't even have to say their brand, show their logo, or their product to even know who they are. There wasn't one mention of the Nike clothing product in my answers, and yet you still knew who I was talking about. And this should be the case with you and your brand when you fill out these questions too. Make sure it's really clear and forget about your product for a minute, because it's not really about the product. It's rather about the brand that's represented by the product. And again, to relate it to community, you cannot build a community around a product. You can, however, around a big idea. So I hope these 5 questions and this activity has brought some clarity to your big idea, or maybe help you uncover it if you've never even thought about it before. So let's recap everything that we've gone over in this first part. First of all, customers in community become fans, faithful, advocates, and nurtured. And that's why you'd want to build a community, because at the end of the day, it means you can have more customers that stay for longer and buy more times. That's a business case and a half. Then, you can't build a community around a product. You can, however, around a big idea. I have a firm belief in this because the greatest communities, the greatest examples of communities we have in society are not built around a product, but rather an idea, a common interest, belief, value, or ideology that unifies every member of that community. Finally, your brand is strong enough if people know who you are without even having to mention your product or show your logo. That is how you know you have a good brand identity and one that is worthy and strong enough to build a community around. So here is your action step for today to start putting your community in motion. Go back through the 5 questions from before and answer them according to your brand until your big idea becomes crystal clear. As you'll soon find, this big idea will be the foundation for which you build everything on top of that is to come. Without it, it'll topple over, and if it's not strong, it'll break and fall. So please make sure it is crystal clear, and it's going to improve over time. So whatever you got for now is probably good enough to get started. Well, look at you go. You made it to the end. Thanks for watching. I really hope that this first part on planning your community was helpful in helping you turn your audience into a community. And as promised, I have a special free gift for you that's going to help you to take your brand to the next level this year. It's very simple. If you want to turn your audience into a community and customers into fans, then go to the description and click on my Calendly link to book a free personalized community roadmap. We're going to sit down and we're going to walk through and plan out your community, go through the exact steps that I've shown you in this lesson. And by the way, this video is part 1 of 5 in a greater series all about how to turn your audience into a community. We've planned your community, but there's still so much more to come. In part 2, I'm going to be sharing with you how to find the founding members of the community. This is for you especially if you're an already established brand, because although you may have followers, you don't have members. Click on the video on screen now to watch part 2. I'll see you there. I'm Elijah Delport. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next lesson.